And this is chapter 18, section 5. This one is titled Challenges to Church Authority. Okay, at the end of the last section, we had the Black Death and kind of the effects that it had on society. One of the effects, though, is also the weakening of the Catholic Church in Europe. This here is going to be about those challenges then that will arise. And part of those weaknesses came out of the fact that the church really could not handle the Black Death, had no way to solve it. And a lot of people throughout Europe began to question the power, the authority, the direction of the church and its leaders. In this beginning of this section, and a lot of the rest of the section, I guess, is going to be how the church reacts to those challenges. All right, so one of the things we need to know about is a heretic and heresy. As you can see right here, heresy, one of our L to J words. First of all, what is a heretic? And a heretic is just somebody who opposes or holds different religious ideas than those that are accepted by the church. And what happened to them a lot of times, I mean, it could go from the point of being banished from society all the way to being imprisoned, tortured, killed. It was a very bad time in Europe for those that spoke out against the church. And unfortunately, many of them were most likely innocent. This is kind of a time period here. We're in the 12, 1300s, stuff like that. It's going to be something that happens in America if you want to think like the Salem witch trials. That's a lot of what went on during this time period here, where people were being accused of being a heretic, and then they were being put into prison or being tortured until they confessed to their sins or gave other heretics up in society. It was a very, very chaotic, crazy time for people. And then that leads to Pope Innocent III. He is going to call for a crusade, not the same crusade that we had a couple sections ago where we're talking about against Muslims. No, he's going to call for a crusade throughout southern France and parts of Spain against heresy. And he's going to basically get soldiers to rise up against those that are accused of being heretics and try to drive them out of Europe. It was really a bad time where many towns are destroyed, thousands are killed, and again, many of them are probably innocent of any heresy and things like that. And what happens here, there was a famous quote from one of the Pope's representatives who, when the soldiers asked this representative, like, who do we kill? Like, who is it that's supposed to be a heretic? How would we know? Because you can't just look at somebody and know they're a heretic. And he basically, as they're going into towns and things like that, tells them, kill them all. God will know his own. Basically saying, kill everybody. Let God sort it out in the end, who was a heretic and who was not. Very, very scary time. All right, now we're going to transition on to not only heretics, those that speak out against the church, but also, once again, going back to that Islamic empire. As you can see, the Muslim empire in this orange had stretched all the way from Saudi Arabia here across northern Africa and basically through most of Spain and almost into France. The Muslim empire had tried to go into France. You can see these arrows here where they tried to drive into Paris and Tours, but they were actually stopped right in this area here, and this would be the extent of the Muslim empire throughout Europe. Well, in 1002, the Muslim Moors empire started to fall apart. And a lot of it was because they started fighting each other within Spain. And what this allows is for some European leaders in this area here to combine their forces to go up against these Muslim Moors and start driving them out of Spain. And this leads us to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. Okay? And they're going to start what's called the Reconquista. Okay? The Reconquista is the attempt of the Christian kingdoms throughout most of Spain to retake Spain for the Christians, take it back from the Muslim empire. And you can see here in about 1100, all this purple, it represents what would be Christian lands. The yellow here would be your Muslim lands during this time period. So for about 200 years, actually more than 200 years, up until the 1400s, late 1400s, you can just see a small, as you look at these little inset, a small incremental driving of the Muslims out of Spain, to the point where 1100, they're about halfway through Spain here. This river pretty much kind of becomes the dividing line. And then you can see here by 1200, it's gotten a little bit further south, to where by 1300 you just have a little spot right here known as Granada that the Muslims held on to in 1300. Okay, so this Reconquista is going to last for a good 3-4 centuries. Okay. Now, we get to Ferdinand and Isabella. Okay, the marriage of Ferdinand and Isabella, what it's going to do is combine two kingdoms, Aragon and Castile. Make sure you write those down. Okay, they're going to combine their two kingdoms, and then they're going to fight against the Muslims. And this is in the mid-1400s when they get married. They're kind of seen as the end of the Reconquista. So when the Reconquista is finally achieved, Ferdinand and Isabella, they're kind of in charge of these areas. It's not really Spain yet. They will create what we know of as the nation of Spain after the Reconquista. And in 1492, well, their main goal, I should say, for Ferdinand and Isabella is to restore Christianity back to Spain. And in 1492, they actually defeat the Muslims. They kick them out of this little area here in Granada in 1492, and now the Muslims are out of Spain. It is fully in control of the Christian empires. And it's also, conveniently, in this year here, that Columbus, King Ferdinand, and Queen Isabella, they're going to fund or pay for Columbus's voyage west. Columbus had come to them several times years before asking for money to go west, and they had denied him each time because they were fighting the Muslims. Well, now that war is over, that fight with the Muslims is over, they can fund Columbus's voyage now. All right. The main goal, of course, was to restore Christianity, make all of Spain Christian. And this kind of goes in line with what Pope Innocent III was doing in the 1200s, the other attempts, that crusade that Pope Innocent called for and things like that. King Ferdinand and Isabella are going to require all Jews to convert to Christianity. And, of course, Islam is outlawed. And if you're caught practicing one of those religions that is not Christianity, you will be punished. Okay? And that leads us to the Spanish Inquisition, another one of our L to J terms. The main purpose of this was to punish and kill heretics, those that were opposing church teachings. Okay? This was led by Spanish priests, this Inquisition, and other church officials. They would go out and round up anybody that was considered or accused of being a heretic, and they would be put on trial. That's what the Inquisition means, trial. It will spread to other areas like Portugal. There will be an Inquisition. And unfortunately, you can see a lot of torture methods. Sorry about the images. But it leads to a lot of people being killed, once again, perhaps innocent. But this is led during this time period of trying to restore, trying to restore Christianity back to Spain, back to Europe. Not sure, well, I'm sure this is not the right way to be doing it, but this was what they did. And this Inquisition will last for many, many years. And other empires, other countries will do the same thing also, unfortunately. And it's to restore Christianity back to Europe and drive out anybody and any other religion that goes against the church teachings. Now, keep this in mind, because then in our next unit, we're going to be talking about the Protestants, the Protestants, and this is going to be one of the reasons why so many people protest. There are a lot of Christians that didn't like what was going on here either, but, they were afraid to speak out because then they didn't want to be accused and put in front of this Inquisition also. All right, last thing I want to talk about then is, okay, Jews and them are being driven out. They're being driven out of this part of Europe and things like that. And a lot of it is because of being blamed for killing of Jesus. Okay, the Jews are the ones that are going to be blamed for killing of Jesus. They're also the Christian church, they couldn't figure out the Black Death. So like Nero blaming the Christians for the burning of Rome, Christians are going to blame Jews for bringing the Black Plague to Europe. They're going to say this is God's punishment for you guys killing Jesus. Okay, so Jews are going to be discriminated constantly throughout Europe, unfortunately. Remember the Crusades, where like Peter the Hermit actually will go attack Jews in Germany. Other crusades will end disastrously because the Crusaders don't go to the Holy Land. They actually go to attack Jews and things like that. And a lot of it is this belief that because the Jews killed Jesus, they need to be punished and wiped off the face of the earth. It's still why today many Jews face discrimination and things like that, not only from Christians, but from Muslims and others. So you do need to keep that in mind as we get moving on in this here, and how a lot of this section right here plays into what's going to come later when Martin Luther is going to lead the Reformation. These are one of the reasons why that's going to happen also. All right, make sure you're filling out your notes. You've taken good notes and things like that, and that's pretty much it for Section 5. Also, make sure that you practice your Chapter 17 and 18 test, which will be coming up. Thank you, guys.